Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 125. I know that's not an even number, but it feels like a good round number.
It is a round number.
Yeah, well,
It's like 5 cubed, right?
Wow.
It is 5 times 5.
I don't
25
I don't
times 5 is
argue
125.
with Emily when it comes to any math related
You're right.
things.
She's already winning the player versus player tonight. That's for sure. It's a math test. This is episode 125. We're going to be talking about games that we're looking forward to. And you're thinking maybe this is just like, is it like an anticipated list? No. The assignment was pick one game that you want to play next. If you could play a game next, is there a game that's just out or been out or coming out that you want to play tonight? So we're each going to talk about one of those. We're going to play a little player versus player. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some of the games we've been playing. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Yeah.
Because there is one that I've been wanting. That kind of passion is how badly I do want to play this game.
All right.
This should come as no surprise for me. It's Dune Imperium Uprising. I'll admit, when I first saw this come up, when they were like at the Direwolf event, and they were like, yeah, we're doing another Dune Imperium, my first instinct was bad, because I think that Dune Imperium is perfect the way it is. I think that with the Rise of Ix expansion and the Immortality expansion, everything is just great. It doesn't need to be touched and messed with, so I was a little apprehensive until I really understood what they were doing, and I heard Paul talk about it, because they feel the same way. So Dune Imperium Uprising is not an expansion.
Okay.
It is almost, it's not really a second edition. It's a new version of the base game. This is not something that I think I've ever seen happen before. Literally, Uprising can replace the base Dune Imperium, and then you can still add on the Rise of Ix and Immortality expansions to this new base game. Or, if you have all of it, you can mix it all together and then decide which board to play. You could play the regular Dune Imperium board, or you could play this new Dune Uprising board. Paul, who's the designer and one of the owners of Direwolf, he likened it to what they did with Clank, where we had other maps, like we had the Mummy Tomb, or like the Spider Caves, where you used fundamentally a similar system, but a new board that brought with it a bunch of new elements.
Interesting.
And of course, they're introducing a ton of new stuff into the game. It's getting streamlined a bit from what we had with the original Dune Imperium, and also they're bringing in sandworms, which is something that is very exciting for people.
Oh, in a more significant way?
More than just 9 points.
Yes, in a very
10
more
points this
significant
time.
way. You can actually get like the things that they use to ride the sandworms, and you can I don't want to say tame them, because you can't tame them, but you can ride them into battle, and you can bring sandworms into the battle with you. And if you do, whatever reward you get for fighting that particular round is doubled. So but you can't garrison them, you can't keep them. They're wild. They just they go back off. So they're doing that. They're introducing some new mechanics, spies they call them. They're getting rid of some things like the fold space cards from the old game, and they're replacing it with some new stuff. They're redoing the guild tracks a little bit. So if you're playing with this secondary board or this new Uprising board, it's going to be a very different experience, while also still playing with the same rules that you already know with Dune Imperium. And so I think that this is the most brilliant thing they could have done. And I want to stress, I don't know, maybe you guys have heard of this. I have never seen a game go back and say, we're going to come up with a new edition of the base game, but add on all the expansions you already had.
I have
like,
to
that's
feel
kind of crazy.
I'll do some light research after we're done recording, and if I found something, it's right here at the bottom of the screen.
But I haven't with this scale. With this, like Dune Imperium won so many Game of the Year awards, and even each expansion last year, both expansions were nominated for Best Expansion.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Which is, Dune Imperium
is kind of crazy.
Holds a very special space.
Do you think this one will
industry.
have expansions?
It doesn't seem
because that doesn't seem like it would, right? Given what you just said. Because otherwise, would those not work with the original version?
With what Paul said about like they're kind of approaching this the same way he approached Clank. Clank had multiple different boards.
Yeah.
So I could see Dune Imperium Uprising, and then maybe Dune Imperium something like another board. That you can change, and a lot of the same stuff is there. A lot of the same locations, and you're still doing the same stuff. And you can even use all the old leaders, all the old houses, with the new stuff. There will be some new houses interjected, some new cards interjected, and things like that as well.
Do you think this will be a game, though, for more experienced players, or do you think this will be the new gateway point if you've never played Dune Imperium?
Ooh.
Well, so I think it's supposed to be both. In that,
that's a tall order.
Well,
Yeah.
in that reading, because I have been very eagerly anticipating this game. They've been releasing design diaries.
Yeah.
And that is something that he talks about. He says that they wanted this to feel a more streamlined entry point.
Okay.
But at the same time, there's even modules that they have that you can add on. Like there's like a trading module and some cards that you could add in as you're playing to give you a deeper experience. So there's kind of like two versions of this game. Like if you've never played Dune Imperium at all, you could start with Uprising and like really kind of ramp into the game. Then you could add the modules. Then you could start adding like Rise of Ix and those expansions into it as well. So according to Paul, it's supposed to be a little more streamlined, a little easier to learn and play.
Interesting.
Not that Dune Imperium was ever like super heavy.
It's not super heavy to begin with, but then you add both the expansions on. It is quite a game, right?
It's quite a bit of game.
Especially if you're like coming into the first time, you're like, oh, you have to play with the expansions, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what is all happening?
You want to learn it all at once?
I don't.
But that's why when I heard of I was really afraid Uprising was going to be a third expansion, and like they even said like he had considered that, and then came to that same conclusion. Like there's enough.
Yeah.
Dune Imperium has enough. Let's not add more, but rather replace. That's even like his design philosophy was let's
simplify, streamline.
Let's replace things. Let's get simpler, streamlined versions of things that we already have. I don't know that it's all. I don't think this content's going to fit in the box.
It'll be interesting to see how they approach all those sorts of things, because there are people out there, I'm sure, watching right now thinking like, "Oh, does this mean I'm going to have a new big box some down the road?" Like, it is kind of an interesting. It probably hasn't ever been done because it is a weird kind of approach.
You could just, if you plan on only playing Uprising, take the old board out and put the new board in, it'll fit. But then there are like the Sandworm miniatures, and they said that you could use everything that's in that collector's, if you have the big box, you can use all of the upgraded components with this.
I would hope so.
So, for the amount of money people spent,
there would be some upset people.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
All right, I might cheat. I have one, but I might mention another one.
Oh no,
and
David,
this is
you made the rules.
I know.
Here.
That's why I get to break them. No, this is why I came up with the whole topic, and I asked these guys to come up with one game because we've had so many games that are like piling up around us since Gen Con, and now it's pre-Essen, and we're in this like crazy time where it's like, oh my gosh, I want to play this, and every time a new game comes here, I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to play this next, and then the next day there's another one.
I picked one that's not out yet.
No, you did. Yeah, that's true.
But I still would rather play that one than
fine.
any of the other. No offense to any of those great games we have.
The first one is also not out yet, and it is going to be an Essen release, and it's called Evacuation. This is a Vladimir Suhi game. Big fan of Vladimir Suhi. Love Pulsar. I like all of his games. This one is, I believe, the last couple games he put out have been co-designs. This one, I believe, is not a co-design. He's getting back to like doing his own games. I think he's got a few coming out this year that fall into that category. I think all of them may be at Essen, but Evacuation looks to be the heaviest game. This is the only part of it that kind of scares me. For me.
You've played Weather Machine.
You got this, David.
You can't just keep going back to I've played Weather Machine.
And loved it.
Like, you fell out of a plane. You can skydive whenever you want. No, but this looks like a really heavy game, and the concept is you're evacuating a planet. So there's this old planet, and the sun and the heat have gotten too much. I think it's kind of relatively realistic. And then you're all moving to another planet, and the main board has both planets, the old one and the new one, and then there's this track that kind of wraps around them, almost like an infinity symbol, but incomplete. But you start the game, everyone starts the game with bases and whatnot, production facilities on the old planet.
Okay.
But that's all dwindling, like necessarily over the game. And you have to, develop the new planet, and the production production phase each round, you're taking what you're producing here and what you're producing here. But it's going to create, I think, the situation where you can kind of evolve all the things you're producing. Like you might go heavier into one of the resources that you weren't in before. But it sounds like it's going to be a balancing act that is going to be very tense for my liking.
Sounds like our kind of game.
It does sound like their kind of game.
Do you go back and forth between the planets? It reminds me, the way you're describing it reminds me of On Mars, right? Where you were literally...
I don't think you go back and forth. You're basically... They're both serving you, and the player board is also massive, but even the player board, on one side, you track some of the stuff for the old planet, and then the other side you're tracking some of the stuff from the new planet, and you're kind of like having to just kind of like graduate it over throughout the game. You're forced to do that. So that's the part that I feel like there's got to be a lot of room for. I'm going to feel like I'm making mistakes.
Yeah.
But again, even though it doesn't sound like my game, on one hand, it's a Vladimir Suhi game, and I love the way it's looking and what it's trying to do.
Well, it's a space thing too.
Well, yeah, I knew you'd like that.
That's already checking out. I was told I couldn't pick that one for the record, but
I did.
I'm very much anticipating that
It was
game.
after I'd already picked it, sir.
No, but I think that's one because you and I kind of discovered Pulsar around the same time.
Probably.
I think you introduced me to Pulsar originally.
I mean, maybe. As soon as I played Pulsar, I knew I liked it. I'd actually traded some emails with Delicious Games this week talking about this, and I'd mentioned, hey, do you think you'll ever get the rights to Pulsar back? Because he's also bringing out a new edition of Shipyard, and the rights had lapsed, and now Delicious is doing Shipyard again. And I was like, could Pulsar be on the horizon? The answer, at least right now, is it's still in print with the current publisher.
Oh, is it really? Yeah. I'm surprised.
But yeah, not a lot of people talk about it, so I was wondering whether it was in print or not.
I think that should be listed amongst some of the greatest games.
It's in David's top 50.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, it's maybe in my top 10, actually.
No, we have it on camera. We can go back.
I know. Wherever it is, Evacuation looks really cool. It also looks like it's going to have those phases that you might be familiar with from Underwater Cities, where there's that production and you get all your resources, and then your round depends on how much you can string those out. Because once you're out, you basically pass, and then everyone else can keep going while you're sitting there without any resources.
And one thing you didn't mention, I'm surprised you didn't mention, it looks like you kind of followed in the footsteps of Praga and even Woodcraft, where there's action selection, and some of the actions get stronger as you don't take them.
Yeah.
They get juicier.
Nice.
I really like that balance of being tempted to take an action that maybe you didn't really want just because it's a little juicier now.
Yeah, and I looked at the rule book, and the only version of the game that I read about was sort of the basic version where you take these 4 actions on your player board. You're putting cards underneath the actions you take, maybe to do what you're saying, because it's kind of keeping track, and you can have up to 4 cards under any one action during, I think, a round. But those same cards, if you flip them over, they are actions also. You can play an advanced variant where you're sliding those in and doing, and they kind of enhance the actions.
I like that.
It sounds like a beefy game. So
I'm excited.
Hopefully we're going to get a copy sometime this year. My fingers are crossed for prior to Essen, so we'll see. The other one I wanted to mention really quick is Evenfall. Rado just covered this, and I think in his final thoughts, he kind of danced around the idea of this being an early contender for his game of the year.
Ooh.
I think, I may be misquoting him, but he said something along those lines.
He was very positive.
He was very positive, and we were lucky enough to be next in line for the copy of the game. That is one that just arrived, and I'm like, I need to learn this right away and play it.
Do you know what the mechanic is? What the main way you play the game is?
Well, Evenfall?
Yeah.
So one of the things that has going on is akin to an old game called Elysium. Did you ever play that?
No, but I know of Elysium.
Elysium?
Maybe.
It was, I want to say it was a Space Cowboys game. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's an old Asmodee game.
Cowboys.
But one of the things that it has this concept of having these cards in play that give you powers. But those same cards are cards that you need at some point to convert below your board so that they're points. But the point at which you do that, they're no longer powers that you can use. And that is a big decision point of how long do I leave this in play so I can keep taking advantage of it?
Yeah, it sounds really familiar.
And do I want to get stuck, not having put it down here so that I can score it at the end of the game?
Mechanic.
And this
that
has
tension.
that. Yeah, it is a really fun thing, and not a lot of games have done that, but Elysium is a similar game that has done that. But yeah, I don't know much about it. I took the rule book to bed with me a couple times to read before I went to sleep, but I fell asleep. No, I did not get far at all.
Well, you guys are making me really excited to play these new games, but that is why I specifically chose my game, which is not a new game. It is an older game, and my game is A Feast for Odin.
Oh,
I mean, I'm down.
So the reason
Brian's gonna want to play tonight.
I'm down.
The reason being because like you're right, we have all these new games. Essen's coming up. We just had Gen Con. Everybody's talking about all the new hotness and everything that's going on. And A Feast for Odin is one I still haven't played. And we talk about it all the time in like reference to new games,
true.
in reference to mechanics, and in reference to how you play games or what it feels like. And I still haven't played it. And like everyone I know has played it, says it's great. Every time I bring it up, they're like, Emily, you would love it.
I do think you'd like it.
See? But I still haven't
also
played
do
it.
think you would love it.
So when David was like, if we had a game set up in front of you and we said we could play it right now, what would you want to play? And I was like, A Feast for Odin.
Yeah, when I put it that way, she had another game that was newer, and then I put it that way, and she's like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna say A Feast for Odin for sure."
Because then, yeah, we don't bring it out as much, honestly. For as
at
good
all.
as it is, and as much as it gets talks about, our groups don't play it much because everyone's already played it. I think you've played it more than 10 times, is what you said.
Played it over. It's one of my, what are they called, dimes in
yeah.
stats. We've played a game over 10 times. I mean, it is a bit of a beast to set up and play.
It's a lot.
But it is.
It's got like
But I love
got
that.
like something like 73 worker placement
See,
spots.
this is why this is going to sound so bad, but we've talked about this even on the channel before. I almost feel like I need companies to go back and reprint, like we talked about the new edition
Oh yeah.
of Castles of Burgundy, just to get it back to the table.
Yes.
Because we don't go back to those older games as much as we should. We're always like chasing the new. So maybe someday they'll come out with the ultimate edition of Feast for Odin, then everybody will be playing it again.
Or maybe just a new edition that uses the expansions to the old one, and Paul Denon could help design
Hey,
it.
anything that Paul designs, he designed Wild Child West as well, by the way.
I absolutely.
So
know
really,
that.
anything that Paul designs, I'm game to try.
Yeah, Paul's got a good track record.
But you didn't even
for sure.
mention, I mean, Feast for Odin is Rosenberg.
Yeah. I think we just need to have a day where we only play not new games, and A Feast for Odin is going to be the very first one.
Well, that's going to take a bite out of the day.
Yes.
It's not like crazy long, but it's not a short game.
It's not a short game. It's a bit of, I mean, the setup, and it's a table hog too. I mean, it is, especially if you use the Norwegians expansion, which I would recommend doing that. But like the problem too, like you get some people that are like, we're going to use that. We've got all these promos. There was like a Christmas promo.
Okay, I don't need to play with everything. I just want to play the game.
Well, I
just want to say I've played A Feast for Odin.
We will. The one thing I want to ask you about,
you
though.
can say that now.
What?
Nothing's stopping you from saying it.
Do you like games where you stare at the beginning of the game at your player area and see massive piles of negative points?
That's fine, as long as I can see the progression
Yeah.
afterwards.
Also, you're
Alright.
looking at like 60-something actions out on the action.
To me, negative points are like an obvious objective, right? Because it's like,
Right.
okay, this is negative. All I gotta do is make it positive, right? And those are obvious, like they're almost like objective
That's it.
cards, just to start.
You
solved
will
it. All you have to
appreciate
do is
that.
make those
You will
negative
like
points
that, I
positive.
think.
Yeah.
And that is, but what I like about it is, David, maybe this doesn't appeal to you, but the fact that covering those negative points is a spatial puzzle, which isn't going to work with everybody, but I really enjoy
No, I do.
fitting those pieces together.
I like that part too. I'm not a big fan of, in general, of games that you're digging yourself out of a
Pixie
hole.
Queen was one of those.
Anything that basically
Lords
says
had some
things are
whatever.
awful,
Like
make
Agricola
them
starts
better.
like that.
I want them to be good and just get better.
Agricola does start like that, but it's not in your face. Like you're not
This
staring.
one's awful. This is a big board full
Just
of
covered with
negative
negative
point,
points.
minus one, like 100 times.
Agricola, you start off in the negatives because you have to build up things in order to score points. So, but it's not very obvious. Sometimes it's not even obvious until you get to scoring and you realize, oh, I had way more negative
Well, when you
points
play on
than I
BGA,
thought.
it's very obvious.
Oh,
You're like,
does it just start
negative 14 or whatever.
Okay.
The antithesis is those games that give you 10 points because you're going to have to spend some
Yes,
points.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
I like. I like starting with some points.
Just because you know you're going to lose some?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, we really do need to get Feast for Odin. And I think maybe we just do an old school game day and then we talk, like we could do a whole feature on that.
So put it in the comments below. What's
Yes.
the game you're looking forward to? Is it an old game? Is it a new game? What is it? Let us know.
Is it one of these games that we've talked about?
Is it Dune?
I'll bet it's
Dune.
not one of these games that we're going to talk about because we're going to play a little player versus player now, and it's going to be another round of just 1 out of 10. And speaking of player versus player, let's talk about the World Series of Board Gaming. Are you ready to head to Vegas to compete in a series of top games? Event after event, players will make their way through, and one will walk away with $25,000 and the bracelet. The tension is real, but so is the fun, so get your tickets while you still can. You never know who you might see there. We're back with a little player versus player. Like I said, this is just 1 out of 10. If you didn't see it last time, these are going to be 1 out of 10 reviews, meaning a bad score, on BGG for games that are otherwise regarded as pretty good games. And I've got a few different reviews, and I'm starting with ones that are a little more vague.
Okay.
And then as we go through, they'll get a little more clear. Some of these might not be terribly clear, but we're going to go back and forth to decide, who wins. So Emily will get a guess, then Ryan.
We're not buzzing in?
No buzzing in.
Beep, beep,
no
beep.
buzzing in. Buzzing in is problematic. So we've only got 3 of these because these take a little bit longer. So I'm going to start, and Emily's going to be the first one.
Oh no, here we go.
You don't
Let's
want
go.
that?
It's so much pressure, David, honestly.
No, because it's going to be the hard one. This one you're probably going to get wrong. Just say any game name.
Any game name.
All right, ready?
Let's go.
The first review. I don't like worker placement, and this is the worst worker placement game.
Should I just say A Feast for Odin? Because it has lots of worker
can you
placement.
imagine if it was
That would
Feast
have
for
been
Odin?
funny.
All right, I'm going to do A Feast for Odin just for the giggles.
That is not
Oh.
the answer. Ryan, do you have a guess?
Oh.
Hint, it might be a worker placement game.
Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project, no. Ready?
Yes.
And we're going to go to the second one. So abstract. It has absolutely no connection to its theme at all.
Oh, no.
Should we go to Ryan now?
Yes, please.
Ryan?
Stone Age?
Oh.
Stone Age. I mean, this person would be very wrong if that was Stone Age.
I mean, I could see.
Although I'd say I think a lot of people will think they're wrong anyway.
I could see saying that Stone Age doesn't feel the most thematic.
Maybe.
I could see that.
Have you played Stone Age?
I have played Stone Age.
You're just collecting resources. It could have been any theme.
It's lighter.
Worker placements are typically like that, though. It could be any theme.
That's true.
That's true.
All right, so
Do you
it's
have a
not
guess?
Stone Age.
I'd say Marco Polo.
Oh,
Ooh,
interesting.
Are we counting dice placement as worker placement?
Well,
That's
she
a good
is
question.
apparently. She's wrong though.
That's why it's the worst worker placement.
There's not even workers in
It's
this.
just dice.
It's Tichu is what they're talking about. This is the worst worker placement game I've ever played. You're not even placing workers. It's like a trick-taking game.
What is even the theme?
That's accurate about Tichu. All right, the last one. And this is going to Emily.
Oh boy.
It's like a bad deck builder and a bad worker placement game put together to make something worse than the sum of its parts.
Oh, now I'm thinking Dune Imperium because of the deck builder part.
What's your guess?
Dune Imperium.
It is Dune Imperium.
Yeah. They're wrong.
So
by the
someone
way.
said about Dune Imperium, so abstract, absolutely no connection to its theme at all.
I would disagree with that so much.
Yeah.
I kind of have to agree
There's
with that.
a lot of theme in
Yeah.
Dune Imperium.
100%.
Yeah, that last one was either going to get you to that or Lost Ruins.
And actually, I was
most likely.
if
Yeah,
she
yeah,
had said Dune and got it wrong, I was gonna say
Said
Lost Ruins or
Ruins.
vice versa. I was like,
Yeah.
it's one of the two of those.
First one goes to Emily.
Woot.
Next one. We'll start over with
Yeah,
Ryan
that's
this
fair.
time.
Makes sense.
Sorry, Ryan. This is pretty vague. Endless game.
Endless Winter.
Oh, no, it's not Endless Winter, but I love that. That would be like the guy from the Today Show who did movie reviews. Endless game, more like.
Endless Winter, more like Endless Game.
My favorite one of those, side note, the guy name was Gene Shalit, by the way.
yeah, that was-
with the big fuzzy hair on the Today Show way back, probably before you were born.
No.
My favorite one was for the Harrison Ford movie Air Force One. He said, Air Force One, audience 0.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, it was not Endless
was-
Winter. Do you have another one?
Endless Game.
I'm going to say Scythe.
Scythe. Okay. No, I would have loved for you to say Air Force One.
Yeah.
Next one. Emily, starting with you.
Okay.
Most boring game I have. By the way, I have edited the grammar on some of these because
Thank you.
some
I
of
wish you
them,
hadn't.
I appreciate
some of
that
them
you did.
are horribly written.
I wish you hadn't.
Most boring game I have ever played, and even though some call it a deck builder, it's definitely not a deck builder.
Ooh.
Not a deck builder?
Well, I mean, some people call it a deck builder, but it's
The first thing that
definitely
came
not
to
a
mind
deck
was
builder.
Dominion, so I'm just going to say that. But that is definitely a deck builder.
Is that what you're
That's
saying?
my guess, yes.
Dominion? No, it's not Dominion.
Great Western Trail.
Well, that's fair.
It is Great Western Trail!
Oh!
Was that your review?
Unfortunately, only because I don't agree with it, but I have heard people complain that it's too long. And my games
That
are
was the
never,
giveaway, or was it the deck
Well, it
builder,
was the
not a
deck-
deck
it
builder?
was-
Yeah,
I was like-
think the deck builder is fair, though.
It isn't really, yeah. And
It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
You are technically adding cards to your deck, but it doesn't feel like a
doesn't feel like
deck
a deck
building
And I
builder.
game.
if I was like trying to get someone to play Great Western Trail, they would be like, but it's a deck builder.
Yeah,
No.
no.
Like I would be like, you got light deck building elements.
Yeah.
What's the last one?
The last one was a bit of a giveaway on this one.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. Cowboy
But I
hats.
thought it was funny.
I don't like those cowboy hats at all.
The last one was weird because here it is. Fantastic game. Second edition is better, and I hate that first and second editions both have scores on BGG. So first edition gets a 1.
Oh, wow. That is like the most petty reason to ever give a score.
And that
Whoever
is the
you
reason
are,
why sometimes the BGG scores don't make
Whoever you
sense.
are, I salute you.
Salute.
This should be 2 categories. This one should be higher. Like that's
my
just
God.
funny. Like
Therefore, I hate this
I
game.
like the second edition so much
so
that not only am I going to rate it a 10, I'm going to go rate the first edition a 1.
And all other games, ones, because
Right.
they're not Great Western Trail second
I'm
edition.
boycotting this system.
Fantastic game, 1 star.
All right, we're going to head back to Emily
I
for the
love it.
last one. Hopefully you've been playing along. We'll be looking in the comments to see how good you are. The next one, Emily.
Yes, please.
Here's the first review. Boring, complicated mess. Everything that gives board games a bad name, no thank you.
And no thank
I
you.
picture them like sounding it out like that when they wrote it too.
Yeah,
Boring.
I wanted to do that in the voice of the comic book store guy from The Simpsons.
Are you going to do it?
No. That was it. That was as much as you get.
Boring, complicated mess. I'm trying to think of a more complicated game. What if we went
Earth?
Root? Stop. Not Earth. I'm going to go Root.
I like the guess. Unfortunately, it's wrong. You know, Ryan, I think the last time we played this, he would just pull these out of nowhere.
I know.
And I'm
Because
like,
I
wait,
kept saying
what?
Terraforming Mars
How
and it
do you
ended up
know
being
this?
right.
That's
or it was like
true.
Arc Nova.
When
That
in
is the
doubt,
risk.
Terraforming
It's the
Mars.
risk you run with the really vague ones because someone pulls something out of
I'm
the
going to
hat.
say, you said, can you read it again?
Boring, complicated mess. Everything that gives board games a bad name. No, thank you.
I'm going to say Mosaic.
Ooh.
There's a lot.
Is that because it's like sitting over there and you're looking
do
at
not
it?
see it.
It is. Over there.
No, because it is. There's a lot going on in Mosaic.
I mean, there's a lot of pieces on the table anyway. That is wrong, by the
I mean,
way.
I thought it was going to be, but I had
Back
to
to
say
Emily.
Oh, God.
Ready?
Here we go.
By the
Yeah.
way, I've got 4 clues on this one.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh,
It
big
might
one.
take them all. Next one. Unsatisfying? Question mark? I'm not sure I understood that part. I left that grammar in, but I think it's wrong. Unsatisfying? Race guides your decisions.
Race guides your decisions. Ooh, what's a racing game? Oh, actually,
Actually.
is it like Terra Mystica?
That was-
It's Terra Mystica.
That was right.
Got
Yep,
it.
that was my guess.
I'm so glad you connected the dots and not being a race game, but a game
That
with
one,
races.
that feels like a bit of a
Yes,
giveaway.
Yes.
The next one, it was like doing my taxes.
Okay.
Oh,
And then
wow.
the last one was a giveaway. It's called Terra Spreadsheetica for a reason.
Oh, yeah, that was a giveaway.
So did Emily win the whole shebang there?
Did that was 2?
Emily
No,
with the win.
to
We
be
predicted that earlier, I think.
you.
No, that one. Yeah, I'm like click. I
I
was like, I
thought
hope she
he-
doesn't say Terra Mystica right
And then
now.
I was like,
Oh, really?
no.
Yeah, because like that's a common complaint. People are like, whatever, and that's why. Go watch our inventions video. I think inventions is a lot better.
Innovation.
Innovations, thank you, because people did say that a lot about Terra Mystica. Like whatever faction you are, your race you are, like just do that. But
Yeah, and the new one lets
so
you
much better.
build those
Anyway.
out.
Well done, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Emily. And congratulations to all of you who guessed some of those.
Did anyone get all 3?
I'm sure.
I would love, I don't know, has anyone in the comments on the last time gotten these?
I don't think anyone.
I don't know anyone's ever. I don't know that any one person has ever gotten all 3.
No, it's
I've
rough.
not seen it.
Anyway, that was our player versus player. And next we are going to be talking about just a few of the games we've been playing. But before that, let's talk about Phantom Sleeves. If you play board games with cards and you want them protected, you should check out Phantom Sleeves. They're top-notch quality, easy to play with, and they care about your cards and the environment. Plus, Phantom Sleeves are made with board gamers in mind. The sheer variety of sizes and shapes is kind of crazy. So no matter what game you're playing, they most likely have the perfect sleeve. And whether you want to see your cards crystal clear or avoid that annoying glare from the lights above your table, they've got you covered with both glossy and matte options. And if you're like, I just don't sleeve my cards, well, maybe you should stop and think for a second. Who's going to protect the dusky leaf monkey? Phantom Sleeves. That's who. And we're back to talk about the games we've been playing. We're going to start with Ryan, and we're going to try to keep this, well, I'm not going to make any more rules.
Wow. We get one, David gets
Okay.
two.
They
I
get
know how
one,
this goes.
I get two. It's just the way it works.
Just
I'm
the way it
sitting in the center.
Well, I'm going to do two anyway. No, not really. But I will always start by saying I'm still playing Lorcana, and I'm still loving Lorcana. I could talk about Lorcana in a whole nother Chit Chat episode.
But you won't.
But I'm not. The game that I'm going to
It
talk
will
about...
be another Chit Chat episode.
This is funny, actually, because I brought this idea to talk about this game. This is Great Western Trail, New Zealand, before I knew that this was going to be...
I know. He
an
mentioned
answer.
this, and I was loving
So
it.
that might have been why it was already just kind of on my mind, too, because I got Great Western Trail New Zealand at Gen Con. I played it a couple times since. I loved Great Western Trail, all the way back from the first edition. That game just...
First edition or second edition? Because first edition's a
First
1.
edition is
First
Some
edition.
people think it's a 1.
I'm on board. I got rid of my first edition and all of the creepy faces that came with it to get the second edition when it came out. And this is the third game, and they call it the final game in this trilogy.
Oh, nice.
So it looks like it's kind of wrapping things up, but you're going to New Zealand now, which is interesting in that you're not selling cows anymore. It's sheep.
Sheep shearing.
And so, yeah, there's this whole interesting sheep shearing mechanic now, too, where in addition to taking your sheep to Wellington and selling them, you can stop along the way and shear them. And it introduces a new type of worker, the shearer.
Mm-hmm.
The shearer helps you shear more of your sheep, and they all have a wool value.
This just sounds like a tongue twister now.
It is. How many sheep would a sheep shear a sheep? And you can deliver that wool. So there's now places like, the old railroad from Great Western Trail. The farther you got down the railroad, you can make some bigger deliveries.
Yeah.
You can also deliver the wool. So there's some spaces where you can put your discs if you've sheared enough wool. So it's interesting that the sheep that are lower value are usually higher in wool value.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of have to make that decision, which path am I going to go? And I've seen, actually every game I've played, somebody has decided to just go full shearing strategy, and they've done really well every time they've done that. But that is coupled with a new top board that is basically the Rails of the North board from the first one. They've kind of brought that back.
Oh, really?
Except you're not
It's
moving
sailing.
a train, it's sailing. You're moving to these different islands, and you're doing the same things you were doing before, unlocking new ports to deliver, leaving your workers behind to take in-game scoring tiles, all that same stuff. But the coolest thing for me, what makes this game, I think, the best of the three, is there's a ton of different new cards that get added into your deck. Not just adding sheep in, you're actually earning cards. And there's a standard set of cards you can earn, sheepdogs, which give you certificates, and there's some boat cards that move your boat. There's some a new sheep, like a certain type of sheep that you can only get as a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, there's 3 variable sets, and there's like 10 sets of cards in this game, and you choose 3 of them every game, and those are even more rewards you can earn. And when these cards come in your hand, they do something, and then you discard them and draw a new card. So your deck is very dynamic. There's way more happening with the actual deck building of the game, and I think that it makes the game so much more interesting.
Yeah, you have and then you have the wildlife track that you have that's new.
Yeah,
you have
the Pathfinder
gold, which is like
track,
a new different type of resource. If you wanted to play Great Western Trail plus more,
Yeah.
I think that's what this game is.
But if you played all 3, the second one had the way that the boat system worked in the second one felt like that, but it felt like it was too much. This doesn't ever feel like too much. This feels like you're still playing exactly the game you love. There's just so much more to do, and the buildings are more interesting.
I said it felt like if you added 2 or 3 expansions to the base game and they just built it in, right? Not added on top, but they were just built into how you play the game.
So
now.
is it the heaviest version of Great Western
I didn't play
Trail?
the other 2, but I
Wait, you didn't play the other 2? You didn't play the first one?
No, sorry, I didn't play Argentina.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, I'm learning something. Argentina felt heavy in a different way.
Okay.
Because you had to you could deliver to these boats, and then the boats would take you to these islands, and you could leave your whatever chits you delivered. But then the boats would leave as the score tracker moved down. The boats would go. So there was this whole timing element that made the game feel way heavier than it probably actually was. So I'm glad. I liked it. I thought it was unique and innovative and interesting, but it's not my favorite mechanic.
Okay. Is this the best version?
This is, to me, the best version of the 3.
Did it have cowboy hats?
Well, yeah, it also
does
has
have cowboy
Well,
hats.
then it's fine. It's fine.
Well, and I like that they stuck with that. They made a thematic decision when they did the second edition of Graduation Trail, and they said there's going to be 3. They stuck with that. We've got 3, and they all have the same look to them. They all have the same components to them. It's really nice.
So you're saying there's probably going to be another trilogy with different hats?
There could be.
Yeah.
There could be. It wouldn't be Graduation Trail at that
like
point.
fedoras.
There could be the Fedora trilogy.
The Fedora trilogy.
We'll see.
With Tom Vassell.
Fister. He's on the cover. He's one of those faces like in the first Graduation Trail box.
By the way, we haven't mentioned this. Speaking of Tom Vassell and his hats, he was wearing some ball caps at Gen Con.
Oh, yeah.
And I might have to find a picture of him because
I took a picture with him.
I think he was being mistaken for you at times, right?
He was, and I was being mistaken for him.
That's so funny.
As it happens.
We had a little We've had multiple conversations about that. I'm telling everybody that my plan is that when Tom retires, I'm just going to start doing his shows and not say anything, and that nobody will ever know that Tom retired.
I think people will figure it
definitely.
out. So I've got 2. I am going to break the rules, but I'm going to talk about one really, really quick, I promise. It is this little game called Wooly, speaking of sheep.
Oh, is it a game or is it an experience?
You know what? I'm going to
Sorry.
say it's a game because I have a very loose definition of a game.
Can you
A game is any activity that has a goal.
Yeah.
That's the definition
That's
of a
good.
game. No, here's why. First of all, magnetic box.
He loves magnets, guys.
Secondly, magnetic board, magnetic
magnets,
tiles. I like magnets.
I like magnets.
I like magnets. I'm like the turtle kid, but with magnets. No. So this is a puzzle game. Alicia and I played one of these, and you take a card, and it shows you orientation of these sheep.
Okay.
And there's 2 sides. There's a big board and a smaller board. This is actually, there's 3, really. But it shows you the orientation of the sheep. The card might show you some of these yellow flowers as well, but it might not. The flowers don't matter. It's just that you have to get the sheep in the right position and facing the right way.
Okay.
And every one of the puzzle cards has only one solution given all the tiles that come with the game.
So do you move them around, or what do you have to
No, you just have to find, you have all the tiles in a pile. You have the board, and we have to, we're sitting here putting tiles on here.
I see.
All the spaces have to be filled with tiles, and there is only one combination, and all the tiles are double-sided.
Oh, interesting.
There's only one combination that will work for the puzzle. So it's just kind of like, on one hand, kind of this just chill experience to sit there and do together. It's like a series of puzzles. And I thought the presentation was fantastic because you're putting these little polyomino tiles on here, and if it wasn't magnetized, it would be kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can just show you like this. I can hold it up like this. I could show if you were on the ground looking up right now, you could still see it.
It's amazing to me that this comes from the same company that brought us Barrage.
Yeah, this is from Cranio Creations.
So this is Barrage levels or something?
This is the Barrage expansion, actually. The Cranio does a lot more than people know. There's a few games that we've recently got from them that we'll be checking out, but that was one of them. The other one I wanted to talk about, we have actually played on a Just Played, and we're probably going to be playing it on a live stream sometime soon, and that is Match of the Century. This is the Watergate-esque game coming out from Capstone, and it is based on the chess match of the century between Spassky and Fischer.
Yeah, Bobby Fischer.
So it has a very, very Watergate vibe. You're playing cards. As we joked on the video, it's an abstract game because you're playing cards back and forth. There's got that whole tug of war thing, but it plays otherwise completely different than Watergate.
Also completely different than chess.
Yes, it's nothing. It's nothing like chess. It's really just based on that historic event that happens to be about chess. But you have they've kind of brought in some of the sort of meta strategy of someone goes and then you're trying to figure out what you want to do, and you're kind of giving up situations. There's 4 fronts that you're battling on. You might be like, nah, I'm going to give up here because I want to win over here. And you're basically battling over advantage points each round, and whoever has the most advantage at the end of the round scores a point, and their king moves forward.
How different is it from Watergate? Like, is it completely different?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes. Other than the fact that there's a tug of war, and you're playing cards, a card on your turn, and it's a 2-player sort of, and with asymmetry in your decks.
That's what I was going to say. It builds on that theme or continues that theme of like we have a 1 versus 1 historical situation that's represented in the game. So like thematically, it definitely follows Watergate.
Sure.
And I could see I would love a whole line of these.
Yeah.
But I like how it's so different from Watergate. If it was like Watergate but chess, it'd be like, well, I'll just play Watergate. And like they needed to give me a reason to play this.
It's absolutely not that. That is everyone's number one question, what you asked, because we got some comments on our video like, can I just stick with Watergate? How much is this? People thought it was just going to be a reskinned Watergate. Yeah. It is not that. It is one of those experiences that feels enough like that, but also enough vastly different than that it's its own thing.
And it continues, like, Watergate had that cool feeling of, like, ooh, you're moving the evidence, and you're taking the evidence, you're pinning the evidence to the board, and it very much felt like that thematic, like, you know, sticking the pin in, whereas Match of the Century actually literally gives you pawns, and you're playing cards on a chessboard, and you're placing pawns on your chessboard. You're not using them as pawns.
No, they just power up your card.
But just that act of like adding your pawns, and the first player marker is a queen, and your king is your score. So in that way, it does still, like, they did put an emphasis on like making it feel very thematic too to what you're doing. Somebody in the comments was like, they made a game about chess that's not chess.
That's funny.
And then eventually somebody's going to make a game where you're playing Match of the Century, which is a game about playing chess. It's like it's the meta.
Inception games.
Inception. Yeah, so those are the games that I play. I've played some other ones recently too. I got Sky Team to the table again.
All right, no more games for David.
I've got this.
That's
I've got
it.
this.
Stop it. It was just one.
I'm a rule breaker.
All right, the game I've been playing was not just one. It was How Dare You?
How dare you?
How dare you? The game where you don't want to be a silly goose.
Insane.
Yeah, this is a good game.
It's very fun. It's very silly. So I brought it. So I was on a work trip this past week in Seattle, and I brought it with me. It's a very small, just deck of cards, and it's easy to bring around. I just had it in my pocket basically all week, waiting for a time for us to bring it up.
I was like waiting for the opportune moment. Is this it?
One of our success traits is fun, and I was like, speaking of fun, I do have a game ready to play. And I was like, they were like, oh, can we play? I was like, we could play it right now. We've got 5 minutes before the next meeting. Let's go. And it's very simple. So all it has on it is a card with some facts, and you're trying to guess what the number is for each fact. So it might be like temperature on Mercury, right? And then I have to guess what I think the temperature is. So I might say like 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're like, 10 degrees? Mercury is the closest to the sun. It's way higher than that. 100 degrees. Then Ryan goes up higher, and he goes 200. And I go, oh, that 200 is too far. I'd say, how dare you? And then we would check on the card, was 200 too high or not? If it's too high, then Ryan gets the card because he was being a silly goose, going too high. If it was not too high, I get the card for being a silly.
Right?
It is. It's like 300.
So you don't know. Some of these we've played it together.
Some of them are.
You're like, what?
And that's the brilliance of the game. It's not. It's some people might know some of it or have a vague idea, but most of it is just kind of like, I don't know. I guess this. Until it's inevitably always going to get to a point where someone says, no, whatever you just said is crazy.
And then you have David with the Price is Right strategy of like, I'll say 71.
You can't. Now it does have rules. You like if it says,
if it's in the billions,
if it says
you go
in
up
thousands,
by a billion.
yeah, you go up by
or like
one
tens
increment.
or hundreds.
But it is good, and it has some pretty fun ones too. Like unlike the Mercury thing, it has one. This is in the game. The average number of farts per day.
Per person or the globally?
We saw one that was like number of hairs
person.
in a nostril.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But there are also advanced rules to help with that, like going up by one strategy where you can get a doubling card, which will get rid of some of your negative points if you double the last number at least. So you're trying to like really up it. And we played with the advanced rule where you can double dog dare someone.
Yeah.
So if I say to Ryan, it's not 200, and he says, I double dare you, because he's like, I'm sure it is more than 200, then I either have to be like, okay, I'll back off and I'll go higher than 200 and keep the round going, Or I could say, no, fine, we'll double dare.
Ooh.
And then we both look at the answer, and now we're wagering 2 cards instead of 1.
Oh, interesting.
The card and the next card on the stack.
Wow.
And all the cards have these little goose heads at the top, this is actually
very
one of the
fun.
most adorable and fun ideas. Those are the negative points you're getting, so you don't want silly goose points. So at the end of the game, whoever has the most silly goose heads on the top of their cards, they lose. Everyone else wins.
Yes. Yeah. I played it with my work friends, and then I took it home to Chicago and played it with my family. It was a very versatile game. I think it's a great game just to have around.
It is.
In your pocket to play anytime.
It is actually one of the unsung party games of Gen Con. I don't know if it was available there, but that's around the time we got it. So look for How Dare You.
I would have taken that with me everywhere at Gen Con.
Yeah, it is a
very fun.
Fun game. Every group I've played it with, too.
You can play it so fast, too. You can play like just a couple rounds, and then you're like, oh, gotta go to a meeting, gotta go do this, and totally fine.
100%. Anyway, that's the games we've been playing. That was our latest edition of Player versus Player, and of course, the games that we're most looking forward to playing. Let us know, like Emily said earlier, what games do you want to play? Like, is there a new game coming out? You're like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to play.
Yeah.
Or is there
some old games you still just can't get to the table? Play a Feast for Odin
shelf
with
of
me.
shame, a shelf of opportunity.
We might have to do a Shelf of Shame episode. Have we done that
should.
before?
I don't think so. I've got some stuff that's been on my shelf of shame for almost 10 years.
I would love to do that. We need to do it.
It'd be a long episode.
I mean, not the whole shelf, just a couple at a time.
Your oldest shelf of shame. I've got probably 2013, 2014.
It's a 3-day long episode.
Anyway, let us know what you thought about any of the things that we talked about tonight. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.